Good evening, boys and girls. It is once again time for Movie Reel. I'm Kevin Tracy.
I'm Samantha Tomlinson. You were about to say you were like combining girls and ghouls.
Yes,
I could
I'm
hear the
I'm
struggle.
I'm losing I'm losing my accent.
So what?
The
Yeah.
quarantine is getting to me, everyone.
So what movie are we talking about?
Ooh, the delightful Fright Fest filled movie of American Werewolf in London by director John Landis.
So this is the guy that directed uh, Animal House and Blues Brothers.
Yes,
Um,
very very much non-horror movies.
I mean, no. Animal House. I found pretty alarming in certain things that happened.
Yeah, but it's not a horror
No,
movie.
but I literally, there were so many times when I watched it, I was just like, what? Like, I was just so
Yeah, like it hasn't aged well. Like there's a lot of like
oh, no.
messed up stuff in it, but I mean,
It's not a horror movie. No, no, no. But,
no.
this, based on, I didn't know that after, well, watching it, but I can definitely see it based on the age of David and Jack, as well as
Yeah.
this is kind of a so this when this came out, like critics, like no one could understand or wrap their head around the idea of a horror that has comedy in it, and
Yeah, the idea of a dark
yeah,
comedy was
not
kind of
existent,
new. Yeah, it
and it's a
wasn't
dark
really a
comedy.
thing. Oh,
It yeah,
for sure.
like it's
Like
depths of dark comedy. There were so many parts. I actually was laughing out loud at certain things, like, and it wasn't like, it was just like really things that were really clever, or just things that I wasn't prepared for. I've never seen this movie, but shocker. But
yeah, this was the one movie on our list this month that you specifically recommended or requested.
I've been wanting to watch it for a long time. And every time it would show up on like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, or whatever, I would go like, "Oh yes, I gotta watch it before it leaves," and I just wouldn't.
Yeah.
I
You
Yeah,
ended up watching anything and everything else, and it's like, well, it's gone. Damn.
yeah, but it's one of those movies that comes on and off. It's on and off streaming. I feel like a lot, and of course,
Yeah,
right when we needed to watch it, it's not there.
yeah, it has a very fickle shelf life for streaming for some reason, and this seems like the perfect time for it to stay on
Yeah,
a streaming platform since it's October, like Halloween's like
yeah.
two weeks away. Um, but let's just kind of jump right into it anyway. Like, what were your kind of initial thoughts going into this? Like what did you kind of know about it? Was there anything that you were kind of expecting or anticipating? What were you trying to get out of this?
I didn't know anything about it. I just
Other than that, there's an American Werewolf and it takes place in London.
yes. uh,
Okay.
I mean, I knew the premise. I didn't know it was gonna be like a dark comedy, and I didn't know that. Um, I thought it might. I honestly was expecting it to either be creepier or more of like a little bit more of like a mystery or something. Like when he first is told that, oh, by the way, you're a werewolf and you got to kill yourself because you're gonna kill people on the next full moon. Um,
Yeah.
like I thought, I don't know, or when he keeps being told, not there, sorry, when he keeps being told like, oh no, you were attacked by a guy, and he's like, no, I wasn't. We were attacked by an animal. It was definitely some kind of animal. I thought he was gonna, and he said, and they were like they're telling him, oh no, like everybody, there was witnesses, and the whole community said it was a man. And he's like, what are you talking about? There was no one else there. There's like, I thought he was gonna travel back to the town maybe and try to figure out like what's going on and figure out more of like the root of what happened.
Yeah.
And but then again, why would he? Because it is called American Werewolf in London, not
Yes.
Northern England.
Yeah, not East Worcestershire, whatever it's called.
Proctor or something. It's like East something. It starts with a P.
Yeah, it's East something with a P. but yeah, like in terms of like there being a mystery involved in the story of like investigating, like the only one who does like any like actual kind of like investigating is his doctor, Dr. Hirsch, played by John Woodvine, because he goes back to the town to kind of like ask the locals like, hey, like, do you know what happened to like those boys that were attacked here like 3 weeks ago on like the last full moon? I'm trying to like like he's the only one like doing any like real like digging or like police work,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of cool to kind of like I feel like was kind of like a window to kind of like explore like this world's kind of interpretation on
Yeah.
like werewolf, like if there's going to be kind of like a unique twist to it, because the werewolf itself, like the actual design of the werewolf is fairly unique. Like a lot of the times werewolf movies, like they were just like bipedal, like furry, like
Yeah.
monsters, whereas this one, he's like on all fours for the most part. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I thought yeah, we got to makeup's pretty the practical effects and the makeup in this are really really kind of incredible.
they
Also,
knock it out of the park.
they were the first this was the first film ever. First of all, it won an Oscar for best makeup and this was the
Yes,
first year that they had that category. It was a brand new category and they were the first one to take home an Oscar for it.
and it's a really high note to start off on for that award,
Oh
because
yeah.
the I kind of I know we're kind of jumping ahead, but his like first transformation, like that scene, it's roughly 2 minutes long, and it is such a painful scene to watch, but it is one of, if not the most impressive werewolf transformation scene I've ever seen in a movie. Like I think the only thing close to it would be the werewolf transformation scene in The Howling, which also came out that year, and that was like the main competition. Because there were like three werewolf movies that came out within the same year of 1981. It was The Howling, this, and another movie called Wolfen. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really know much about that one though. But the main ones of The Howling, which kind of has its own series, and American Werewolf, which was this, and then like a vaguely related sequel, which came out in the 90s, which
Oh,
is just,
American Werewolf in Paris, which
yeah, is
I
just
I
awful.
kept wanting to call. I kept wanting accidentally referring to it as an American Werewolf in Paris, and it's not because of the movie. It's because there's the musical An American in Paris, and I kept blurring the two together for some reason. But yeah, I actually really like the transformation scene and the design for it. I thought was really great. I wasn't a fan of when he's like full wolf. I thought I don't know. I wasn't again, I don't really watch a bunch of werewolf movies. I think the only other transformation scene that I've like
I
noteworthy
swear to God,
transformation
I
scene.
swear to God, if you say
I was
Twilight,
not
I'm
going to
not
say
counting
that's
that.
why I literally stopped to say noteworthy because no, I mean cuz
It's
that
like that
literally
does
is
not
just him
count.
that's literally just him exploding and then he's suddenly a werewolf. No, I'm not talking about that. I was thinking
Yeah.
Prisoner of Azkaban, but that's exactly what
Okay.
but
Yeah, I can kind of see that. That's a solid, unique werewolf design.
the only thing is that's exactly like you see like his legs grow and then you see his mouth. It's kind of like the pieces. Whereas in
Yeah.
this, you do see pieces, but you are seeing him like as he's
You see
first
the
turning, and you see the whole thing.
Yeah, you kind of see the whole picture, and just like the puppeteering work of like him laying down on the ground and his legs just kind of spasming,
His
because
torso got longer, and
yeah,
was
his
he?
yeah his hind legs and the teeth and his whole spine's rearranging. Because the way they actually had to do some of it, they filmed it on a raised set, so when he's like laying down on his back, and you can kind of see his like foreleg, like his legs kind of changing, so it's kind of more like a foreleg, kind of like a dog. um he's actually sitting in a hole where his upper, like his torso is kind of like up on top, and
Oh,
there's like two or three puppeteers kind of operating his like lower body to kind of make it spasm, so he's like actually kind of like almost seizing, um, to make the transformation seem a bit more painful looking, because it is a very brutal scene.
it's pretty. It's kind of wild. Yeah, it was really, I weirdly enjoyed it. I did laugh. I don't think I did. I laugh. There was a part where he's looking down and he's screaming, and I wasn't sure, based on where he was looking, I wasn't sure if it was just he's screaming because he's turning into a werewolf, or because his like dick was changing or something. Based on where he was looking, that's what I thought was happening for a second.
Okay.
No, do you know what I mean? He's like, when he's like, he's on his back. It's that scene. He's on his back, and he's like, just, it's what I thought of, and I kind of was like, I more thought it was funny because I did think that is, like, I feel like I can totally see that being a very guy thing of like,
I
that's the
mean,
one noteworthy, like, oh my god, like, I
it's like,
don't know,
oh no, my dick fell off.
but I also will never go through any experience like that, so I don't know.
I I mean, that's not where my mind went when I
Okay,
saw
so
it.
maybe I was reading
Um,
into it.
I think so. I
Okay.
thought it was just he was looking down and just seeing like the whole transformation on the butt, like his whole body, like his ribs, like breaking and rearranging, and like
Yeah.
everything that just happened that he could see up front, not his dick fell off or
Not his fell
whatever
off.
you
I thought
thought.
he was like growing or something, because like to match his body. Because
I
he was getting taller and like his body was getting longer. So I didn't think
Yeah.
that's like a weird leap to assume that his everything's going to be proportional. I wasn't like, I just, based on where he was looking, I that's what I kind of thought was happening, and I thought, I don't know. Anyway.
Okay. So let's kind of jump into. I'm just trying to change the subject on this point because I don't want to talk about a werewolf dick for 30 minutes. Um. So let's kind of jump into the characters of uh our
This
two main
movie.
characters. Yes, I. Jesus Christ, you kind of fried my brain with that for some reason. So David and Jack are two American college students are kind of taking a like a backpacking trip across England, and they're kind of in like this like remote part of like England, kind of like the rural
Northern
like
England.
country
Yeah.
area, and they kind of hitch a ride from one of the local farmers, and he tells them like, oh yeah, there's a town a couple miles down this road. Now remember, stay on the road and beware the moors. Like, don't go off. Like, do not go off the road. Like, he is very adamant about that. And I really liked the dialogue between Jack and David because it seemed very
Yeah.
natural. Like, they're calling each other shithead. Like, they're getting on each other's nerves, but like they're being
Yes. The
like they're being friendly. It's like, ah, you shithead. It's like, ah, I
yes.
love you too, bud.
I
It's
thought the
just like
same thing. The dialogue was kind of incredible, and they had a lot of chemistry. They were really fun to watch. I really loved the dialogue of so David wanted to go to England, Jack didn't. And he, I guess, his like a girl he's dating or whatever, it wasn't very clear on the relationship, but a girl he's interested in is supposed to meet them in Italy, supposedly, or in Rome. And
oh yeah,
he
I didn't
and
even remember that.
but I love this dialogue because uh David's like, I mean, Debbie, what's her last name, is, she's a jerk. And he's like, hey, you're talking about the woman I love. No, I'm talking about a girl you want to fuck. Like, I thought that was just, I the and then like they start having this like converse, like say like trying to start like a knock knock joke. And I was the joke because like no one's around, so no one would be there. I thought that was what they were trying to get at, but it was
Yeah,
just going through David not Jack not getting it. And it was like a scene, like, was the camera was behind them and they're walking away, and I really liked that angle. I just personally, I thought it started a little too early,
yeah.
but I did like the angle. And yeah, like the dialogue with them is really really
Because it
funny.
was very natural.
Yes.
Like it was just kind of like them kind of ribbing each other and kind of getting on each other's nerves, but they're doing it with like respect. Like they they're friends. Like they're good friends. Um, and they're walking along, and it kind of gets closer to night by the time they reach the town of East Proctor, I think is the name of the
Hmm.
town, and it's like, oh, like let's stop by the pub here and get something to drink, eat, and maybe spend the night here. And they stumble upon the Slaughtered Lamb, which is probably like the most iconic name of like a bar or a pub in like horror movies. Because like I haven't seen this movie in probably like a good 5 or 6 years, and I remembered exactly the name of the bar. It's like, oh yeah, they go to the Slaughtered Lamb. Um, they go in, and like all the patrons there like immediately stop talking and laughing and look at them because like who the hell are these guys? Like we're all locals. Like everyone there knows each other. Um, and eventually they kind of go back to like their normal routine and kind of like are joking and laughing with them. And like one of the bar patrons like tells like this like racist joke of like the American throws a Mexican off the plane because like remember the Alamo, and just like everyone is like laughing and drinking and having a good time. But as soon as Jack asks about this, like there's basically like a pentagram like drawn on the wall and has like a couple candles around it. It's like that's kind of sketchy. And as soon as he asks about that, the everyone just stops what they're doing and kind of like gets very hostile towards the two, to the point where it's like we should go. I feel like we're about to get killed.
So and I think Jack makes he says that's a symbol of like the wolf man or whatever. And so I'm guessing I'm assuming it's there to protect them, the townspeople, the bar.
Something like that.
But they
Yeah.
leave, and the like barmaid, she's just like, we can't let them go. Or no, they're about to leave, and she's like, we can't let them go. And they're like, what? No, go, go. And then they leave, and she's like, guys, no, we can't let them go out there. And they're all just like, they are aware of this issue. They don't want to address it. They just kind of deal with it, and they're just like, it's in
Yeah, it's
God's
like
hands. It's like,
yeah,
you're literally
it's a local
you're
it's a local problem. They're not locals, they're not our
you're
problem.
literally leading these unintentionally, just letting these men walk into their death, and or
Yeah.
possibly, and then yeah, they're still out there walking, and then they hear like howling, and they're all still
Oh,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah, because it's like they wanted to get away from them so fast that they ditched the road altogether to walk on the moors. The one thing that everyone, including the people at the bar, told them not to do.
why? I kind of would have loved more information, because yes, I mean, there's always the classic in every
Well,
single
you can
story ever,
well
stick to the
you can
road.
also get
But
you can also get extremely lost because like it's like the highlands, like there's no light out there. It's pitch black, and as soon as you get off the road, like you're not going to be able to see it again unless you're right next to it.
okay.
Which they did eventually get lost. Like they tried turning around because they heard growling in front of them, and when they turned around, they heard the growling behind them. Then they heard the growling in front of them again. It's like, oh shit, it's circling us. And I gotta say, the howl of the werewolf, like that, it's very distinct and very creepy because I haven't really heard like another howl like it in this movie
Yeah.
or in any other movie, I should say. It's very unique, it's very distinct, and it's automatically identifiable with this movie, which I love about that. Just like unique sounds that you can just pinpoint to unique scenes or specific movies. I love that.
And they're like basically starting to get freaked out, and they're like, what the hell is that thing? It sounds like it's circling us now. And they say, okay, let's just head back to the slaughtered lamb. And then David slips, and Jack's just like, like like haha, like you fell, whatever. And then he's about to help him up, and then just a wolf comes out of nowhere and completely mutilates him. And David just gets up and runs, and Jack's screaming for help. But I was kind of thinking, is this? I don't think this is a like a an unorthodox thing to do that he's just running away. I don't think it's necessarily a dick move, but I was like, how can he help him?
Yeah, it's
You
like,
know,
what
like,
what am I gonna do? Push this thing off of you? And it's like, hey, buddy, leave him alone. Consent is
I
key.
mean, if he did,
It's like, what's he gonna do?
I mean, if he did go to help him, he probably would have died, and nothing. The movie would have just ended. But
Yeah,
I mean, like,
it's like it's a London werewolf in London. What?
it just like I was just trying to think like what it, it's not him being like an but he then just decides go he just turns around and goes Dave Jack, and it's just like did you
It's like,
forget he
yeah,
was there?
it's like, I'll help you. And
And yeah,
like by the time he gets there, like Jack is just, his throat is just gone. Like half of his face and throat is just completely torn out, ripped to shreds, and he's like completely bled out by this point. And then the werewolf like launches itself on him, but the townspeople show up like right in the nick of time after he has been properly bitten and scratched and cut up and beat up, and they fire a couple of shotgun shells at this werewolf. And when David kind of like rolls over and sees this naked guy with a couple bullet holes in his chest, like, what? And then he passes out and he wakes up in a hospital.
see, I like I'm just kind of wondering, do you think that I just want more information on this town, and we don't really get it. We obviously, when
Yeah,
Hirsch goes to the town, and he starts to talk to that one guy who basically says like that kid's in danger, and he's like everyone's in danger, and then somebody's like,
he's cursed.
it's just like, okay, well, why is it this? He says something's wrong with this town. It's like, okay, what's wrong with it? Why? I feel like there's
Yeah,
totally a sequel here. Like if somebody is
yeah.
digging, like maybe like I was thinking about this, like uh if David's like, I don't know, like he has two younger siblings, if one of them stumbles upon like, oh, there's something about this is weird, or how he died, or how Jack died, and then like, like there's I just want so much more information on this town,
Yeah,
and
no,
but also, did they know if the whole townspeople they all know about this werewolf that's running around? I'm just wondering, does this werewolf just live out there? This guy, this because it's a guy, and then it turns into a
yeah,
werewolf.
it's just,
Does he just
yeah, it's just a random
does he
guy.
just live out there in the moors? How long has he been doing this? Does he
Well,
age?
that,
Do they all know
that's
who
what.
he is, and he's just out there
Well,
living there? Like,
that's the thing that I really like about this movie, is that it kind of leaves it up for interpretation and kind of leaves it to your imagination. It explains enough for you to know what's going on, and
yes,
it's a pretty clear, like, oh, you got bit, you're going to turn into a werewolf. I almost said vampire for some reason.
yeah,
You get bit, you turn into a werewolf. It's very much follows like those same like basic rules of like a werewolf. Like you turn on the full moon. It like affects your bloodline. The one unique twist about this is that he sees the ghost of his dead friend throughout this movie, and he's constantly telling him, hey, you're cursed, you're going to turn into a werewolf and kill people on the full moon. You got to kill yourself, buddy. I know it's I know it's a tall order, but you really got to kill yourself. And
yeah.
eventually he starts seeing like the ghosts of like the other people that he's killed on his first night. He's like, yeah, dude, kill yourself. Like, you killed all of us. This is a problem,
And
and it's just
yeah,
going to keep stacking up.
so he wakes up in the hospital and finds out that yeah, Jack's dead. And I was like, oh, I mean, and maybe yeah, but like, oh, like,
Yeah.
but
It's like you saw how he turned out. There's no way he was gonna live through
that
that.
first scene though of seeing Jack like undead again, incredible makeup,
Yes, he has no throat.
and he's just being so like yeah, on the cinema massacre. How do you say is it? How do you say it? It's cinemassacre. He
Cinemassacre.
was talking about like how this is so absurd. It's funny because he's just like is like a ghost. He's just this undead guy, and he's like, "Hey, are you hungry? Can I eat your toast? Can I eat your bread?"
Yeah.
It's like,
Um, and there was actually a cut scene where he was gonna eat some of his eggs, but it was just gonna fall through the hole in his throat. But they had to
oh
cut that. They had to cut that to appease the rating board because there were apparently several scenes that were a bit too gruesome or too out there that I almost want to say would have given this movie an X rating
Oh, damn.
or something like that. It was just like stuff like it's stuff that's already in the movie. It just went on for like a little bit longer than it was in the movie, and that was like one of the things that John Landis has reportedly regretting to trim the movie down so much from what he originally wanted to appease the like the critic board to make sure like the movie was even released.
He apparently didn't
But
know
yeah,
until when the when he was like get approving it for it to be remastered. Like this was like maybe 10 plus years ago, and he
mhm.
didn't realize how gory it was. And it's not like crazily gory. It's just like a couple scenes here and there. It's not like a slasher or a full on like it's
No,
not like a full on blood fest. It's just kind of like, oh, there's a kind of a bit of gore, then another bit of gore.
yeah,
It's not overwhelming or terrifying.
yeah, and a lot of the times like on like his first night, like a lot of the times he just kind of like attacks like a couple people, but for the most part it kind of cuts away like before it gets like too gruesome, and the only time like we see like an excessive amount of gore is when Jack is first being attacked. We periodically see like the ghosts of like the people that he's killed, because every time Jack comes back he is more and more um decomposed.
Yeah.
I feel like is the right word, because like eventually like the last time we see him he is just like a full blown like almost a full blown skeleton at this point. Like half of his face is just completely rotted away. We can see like his cheekbones and his teeth connected to
And
everything.
by the last time
Um,
we see him, he pretty much looks like a cliche kind of zombie look.
yeah, like more or
Yeah.
less, yeah. And the only like massive like I guess like the big gore scene is like the end of the movie when he breaks out of the theater and just goes on a rampage on all the cops around everywhere. Like at one point he bites like the like an inspector's throat and his head just like rolls
Oh
off
yeah.
onto a
Oh
car.
my god, that scene though, again, that was another time where I actually laughed because so he so he after this is the second night of the full it's going to be the second night of the full moon, and that's when
Yeah.
Jack wants him like, hey, we got to talk, and they go into like a porno theater, and at
Yeah, because apparently, like those were really popular on in Piccadilly Circus, and also this was the first American movie in like 15 years that was allowed to film Piccadilly Circus.
or is it Piccadilly Square?
Piccadilly,
I don't know.
you don't know
I
what?
don't. Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
that
know.
area, Piccadilly. Yeah,
Times Square in
yeah,
London,
yeah,
whatever you want to call it.
yeah, exactly. But I didn't realize at first that it was porn. I was just like, because there's these two people, like naked people making out, and then a guy comes in, saying, "I told you to stop this. You didn't tell me to do anything. I'm talking to her. I don't know who you are." Oh, okay, bye. Just walks away, and I was like, "What movie is this supposed to be?" It's porn. But David or so hey, so David is the one that turns
It's,
into a werewolf. Jack is
it's
the
okay.
dead
It's
one.
okay. I won't tell. It's okay. I won't tell anyone you actually know that the title of that
What?
movie.
No, no,
It's okay. Your secret's safe.
no. So wait, what? No, I was saying so. I was moving on. So, uh, Jack is more undead by this point, and he's basically like, oh yeah, you gotta kill yourself, and here's all the people that you killed, and they're all telling him to, and they're all being a couple of them are being really upbeat, like, oh, here's a way to kill yourself, and some of
Yeah,
them
it's
are
like
like,
just take some
uh,
just take some sleeping
I
pills.
don't have you left my wife a widow and my kids without a father. And I gotta say, that guy, when I first saw him, his face looked very similar to Tom Holland's, and I almost like, what? Like it was kind of a double take. But anyway,
That's because it's his
oh yeah,
father. Ooh, no, I
yeah.
no, I don't think so.
But anyway, he then of later he's as you know moon's coming out, he's turning into a werewolf, and then they're realizing, oh my god, there's an animal loose in the theater, and the cops are like closed, like like roll down the like door and like pushing against it.
The shutter
And
doors.
they're like, everybody get out of here, move. And more people start to run towards them and like go to the garage. And or not the garage. It was like one of those like shutter garage doors.
It's like one of those
like
like
at a
security
mall.
like fences.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes down from the ceiling and it just kind of covers the entrance.
But all these more and more people were like joining the crowd, and I thought that was funny. I'm like, you guys are being stupid.
Apparently they only had 2 nights of filming in that area. They were filming between, I believe, 1 a.m. and 4 a.m.
Oh, because no one's using
and
it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it was also like it's basically Times Square. It's a very packed area. It's a very it's a high traffic area, and apparently the way that John Landis was able to secure that was he had a private screening of his then newly released movie Blues Brothers to the police, and they were so impressed by that movie that it's like, okay, we will give you 2-night filming permit, or it was like 2 one-night filming permits here, and this is your time frame. You basically have 8 hours to film here. Make it count. And I think he definitely made it count. And apparently, a lot of the cops were just he used a lot of the actual real cops as extras for that scene.
Huh. That's so fun.
So it's like, yeah.
Fun fact.
Yeah, fun times for everyone. Everyone had a good time. Except for the people who died.
Yes. We gotta talk about the nurse, Alex Price, because so she is like she's a nurse in the hospital, and she spends a lot of time with him, and he, after his first being a meeting with Jack where he's like, no, you're a hallucination, I'm going crazy, he like kisses her, and then she basically says like, you're being discharged, you need a place to stay, and she brings him back to her apartment. I wonder what's going to happen.
Also, there's a scene, I think either later on or earlier
when they're
on,
buying food.
I can't remember. Yeah, they're buying food, and she says like, "Oh, money is a bit tight right now," and then she goes to her apartment, and it's literally like the richest apartment. Like, no, it's literally like on the rich side of London. Like, that is like, there's no way a nurse could afford that.
I think it's because also, I mean, an American audience at least, we aren't going to know the difference. We're just like, oh, she lives alone.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, she has a decent flat for one person, and but she's showing him around, and I did feel there was some. I thought they had good chemistry.
Yeah, they had good chemistry, but like nothing like major has happened.
No,
with
and
them at this point, like he's like kissed her at one point, and she's like nice enough to invite him to stay.
I thought there was some tension. It wasn't like a crazy amount. I did kind of see that like I could have. I don't know. I didn't. It wasn't surprising to me, but it was funny because she basically says like, or he says, so you only have one bed, and I thought either you're going to sleep on the couch or she's going to sleep on the couch or whatever. And she said, like, I've had 7 lovers, like, it was like 3 or 4 of them were one night stands. And I thought she was about to, and she starts to say perhaps, and I thought she was going to say, perhaps you'll be the 8th. But then she says, perhaps you'll want to watch telly while I take a shower. And then it just cuts to them in the shower together.
Yes. and I going back to like the Cinemassacre thing is like, and in the most abrupt transition I have ever seen, they're just shower shagging. It's like, what happened in between? Did he just walk in and join her? It's like, hey, can I shower too?
Save water. Yeah,
save the planet, save water, shower together.
but like, it's kind of a long montage of them in the shower, and then of them like having sex in her bed, and it's again it went on for a little too long, or it was just a little too long.
And apparently that was one of the scenes that was trimmed down by John Landis because apparently it went on for a bit longer. It's like, I don't know why, but it did.
need to be longer.
No, no, not at
It was
all. It
too
was already too
long.
long already. It's like no, we're like this isn't the porno theater scene. This is no, like stop it.
But then, it like later he wakes up and goes to the bathroom, and okay, he pees and then sees Jack. Jack shows up again, and
Decomposed
then
Jack.
they decompose Jack. They then walk out into the living room, and I'm like, first of all, dude, okay, didn't wash your hands. That's nice. And then he sits on the couch, and I'm like, wait, are you just bare ass on someone else's couch? And then I see later he's covering his junk with a pillow, and I'm like, okay, yeah. So now people are gonna come over to her house and like sit on the pillow that you've like had your junk on, and it's like that's nice.
Molested.
And well, I mean, it's like I don't even if my hands are dirty, I don't even want to touch my phone because someone might touch my phone. Like I don't like touching when I know I need to wash my hands. I don't like touching things that someone else might possibly touch. And then
Sam, keep in mind this was out before a quarantine,
okay,
so things were a little different.
I mean, what? Did you just like sit naked around your house like before quarantine? Like,
Hey, we're not talking about me. We're talking about the movie, okay? What happens between me and my couch is personal, okay?
But yeah, then she comes out, and I'm like, is she at all gonna be like, hey, get your ass off my couch? But then they go back, and then he's like having this whole like, hey, do you know about the Wolfman, like the original Wolfman? And because he is kind of wondering if he's going crazy, or he definitely thinks something's up. And I do kind of love this next scene because she goes to work the next day, and he
it's just a montage of him killing time, and they're just playing Credence Bad Moon.
But yeah, actually I want to talk about that for a second, but like he's just it's like a montage of him, like he's trying to read, now he tries to watch TV, he tries to do this, and I just thought it was like funny because it's like, you know, oh, he's a werewolf and a dog, like when your owner is gone, you're just like pacing. That's what I thought the joke was.
I genuinely think that like that scene's my favorite, like next to the transformation scene, which happens like right next to it. Like that like probably like 5 minutes of the movie is probably my favorite, of just him wandering around killing time, like being kind of paranoid. It's like, oh wait, what if I'm not crazy and I am seeing Jack and I am going to be a werewolf? But then like the rational side of his brain is like, no, I'm clearly just seeing things. This is in my head. I just need to find something to distract myself. And it's just him kind of going back and forth of like, well, maybe it is, because it eventually gets to a point where he's just pacing in the room for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And we got to talk though, kind of a segue. We got to talk. The soundtrack in this movie is kind of amazing. So every song,
it's so great.
The reason it was picked is because it has the word moon in it, which is very okay. But it was a really good, the opening song. I can't find it anywhere. And it's like a person, it's Bobby Vinton, and it's called Blue Moon, and for some reason I can't find the song anywhere. But it's just a really, really good soundtrack. And
originally, like one of the songs, I think it might have been Blue Moon. John Landis wanted to get the cover of the Elvis Presley cover of that song, but Elvis Presley's manager, or like the person who like had the rights to that song, would not budge on selling that for like any price or any reason, especially for a horror movie. So he ended up picking, I forget who he ended up picking up, a different cover of that song, and it still worked great because the soundtrack is very iconic for this movie, even though it's just an amalgamation of a bunch of songs with just saying moon.
But it's like
it works so well.
And they are upbeat, but like it blended together really nicely with the film. I feel like I didn't appreciate solid film soundtracks until I think I got to I think it was college, and I started like, wow, the sound. I think it was the soundtrack to Shrek. I was for some reason listening to it. I'm like, this is a great soundtrack. Why is nobody care about this?
And kind of a side note, but after this movie, John Landis, um, Michael Jackson was like a huge fan of this
Uh,
movie, and he wanted John Landis like, "Hey, I want you to direct my music video, Thriller." So he got the makeup guy for this movie and the composer for this movie, who did like all the orchestral scores for this movie, which is only like 10 minutes, which is kind of sucks because it like I feel like that would have kind of made the movie a little bit more iconic to kind of have its own original score.
oh yeah,
Um, but he
the score.
yeah
I can't even
c-
remember. I don't even remember there being a score. I just remember the soundtrack.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah, because it's only in like a few minutes. But yeah, he got like that whole team together and made Thriller, which was his first music video they ever directed, and now it's like one of like the most iconic music videos of all time.
Hmm. That
Like
yeah
I arguably it's like, yeah, it's like the most recognizable music
yeah
video.
yeah. Um, yeah, I heard that like yeah, Michael Jackson was a huge fan, and that's what led to that, which is like also a very that's it's funny because that's like it's funny that that's the movie that inspired Thriller
It's so
as opposed
absurd,
to
yeah.
like The Wolfman or Howling or something else.
Yeah, no, it was just this like horror comedy, like almost like the first of its kind. Like not necessarily the first of its kind. Like there was plenty of like jokes and like comedic relief in other horror movies, but like this was the first one where it was like kind of rode the line between a comedy with horror elements and a horror with comedy elements, and it kind of rode the line between the two of them where it just kind of split the difference between critics and audiences.
Comedy blurring with I mean any genre is always like I feel like in the last maybe 5, 10 plus years, it's just been way more appreciated. It's been way more appreciated because it's
Yeah,
done right. Like you know like a lot of like Marvel movies have gotten a lot funnier or like even
yeah, like Thor Ragnarok was just
it's
like joke after joke after joke.
because comedy is I mean I think my favorite type of humor personally is well I mean anything clever. I thought the humor in this was really really smart, but I think I love comic relief just because the whole point of it is because it's easing the tension, but also you aren't expecting it, and then that's what
Yeah,
makes it extra funny. But this I just thought, but I do love when comedy blurs with like action or like horror or adventure because it's just like again it's the same as like idea of like comic relief. You're not expecting it, and it just makes it even like funnier and almost not random, just like you know like I said like you're not expecting it and it makes it
yeah,
funnier.
it's good situational awareness.
Yes, and but also because people are funny and like right at the especially like we were saying like Jack and David, yeah, like calling each other like shithead or being like the dialogue between them was so like honestly like organic. It felt very real. Like
Yeah,
I would have believed that
yeah,
this
it
was
was
yeah,
genuine.
and like it that's what made it and that's why the dialogue was funny because it was so realistic and because people are funny and people are gonna I was thinking about this actually when they were lost on the moors a month ago. I was in Joshua Tree with some people and like our last night we were in the desert looking watching the sunset and then you know it's dark and about half of the group was terrified and me and a few of others were just like I mean, it's kind of funny. We're lost in the desert. Like, I was not like, and people are like, are you not scared? I'm like, I mean, should I be? Like, the road's not that far away. Like, I have my phone and a flashlight. Like, I almost did step. We did split up, which I knew every movie ever has told me not to split up, but we did. But
No, how are you not
but
dead? By the rules of horror movies, you should have
we did
died.
almost step on a snake, and after that, I did kind of get a little nervous. But before
Oh
that,
no.
like I'm like, I don't know. I'm just it's this is fine. Like I'm not too worried. But like and I mean this scene obviously in this was different because they get kind of almost mutilated by a werewolf. But like it
Yeah,
was
I mean, you're lucky you didn't encounter them at that point.
oh yeah I was thinking that when I was watching them like I would have been probably making I maybe not right in that moment, but I would have been thinking about it.
You would have just been making ant jokes to yourself.
I mean, it's
um
possible.
so kind of going towards the actual werewolf itself. I thought that it was very clever how they were able to hide the design of the werewolf for the majority of this movie, because it is a puppet. It is operated from the back, so pretty much whenever you saw it, you either saw it from the side, or directly from the front, or kind of like from like a downward view, looking down at it. um, and you would almost never see its back legs. And I thought it was very clever how they were able to do that with the camera angles and the way that they were doing it. And I think the best example of this is when he's stalking that guy on his first night in the like the subway
Yes,
tunnels,
yes.
because that scene especially stands out to me because it doesn't really have any music in the beginning, and you just kind of hear him growling, and you see him at the end of the hallway, which that's kind of terrifying on its own. It's just like, what is that? Like, there's no buildup of tension. There's nothing there to kind of uh, take you out of the moment and make you think it's a movie. Like, this is just like, this is a real moment. This is some genuine terror on this man's face, and that is some unknown, terrifying animal that is growling and is probably going to attack and kill me. And it's a very real and visceral moment, and I just genuinely loved it, and especially how they shot it, because they were able to hide it almost perfectly, in my opinion, of that this thing's a puppet. It's just like, what is that? Is that a dog? Is that a werewolf? Like, you couldn't really tell what it was, and it was just a very fun moment in the movie, because it's like, this is actually scary. This is an actually terrifying moment.
Yeah, I really like that scene. There's a really great like uh the camera work on it was pretty good, and there's especially when he's first running and he's running in this like narrow hallway. It was
Yeah, like a very cramped
and it kind
tunnel.
of it was like I it was definitely shot well, but then I did love you do get like a sneak peek of the werewolf, and kind of going back to what I said before, I think I understand why we only saw bits of him, because of it was a puppet and it didn't really have back legs, and it was just them
Yeah.
operating it. So I understood why. I think it was just because I really wanted like a full shot of the werewolf, just because I thought I really loved his design when he was turning, and like before he goes full wolf, when he's just like his mouth and like his body. Like I thought that was great. I think he just again I my werewolf knowledge is not big. I've seen more of like how he was as a pre-wolf. That's kind of like again in Prisoner of Azkaban. He's not like a furry like a wolf. He's like it's more like a lichen creature. Like he's got like a kind of a weird body, crazy arms, long arms and legs, and like bits of hair as opposed to being covered in
Yeah.
it. And that's
Yeah, so like, he is more of a wolf man, whereas this one, like,
yes,
this is a werewolf. Like, this is like a full blown wolf. Like, there's no man
yeah.
in that.
But
Uh,
he
yeah.
was way like fluffier than I would have expected, and I just really wanted. And his shape though was again, it wasn't like a it wasn't what I expected, and because his shape was almost kind of different, I just would have loved to see a full version. But I understand why we didn't. But it was just
Yeah.
kind of, I think it was because again I wasn't expecting him to look that way, so a full version would have been
Yeah.
helpful.
Like, so you were kind of more of expecting like more of like a traditional like bipedal kind of like guy in a suit kind of
I
thing.
don't really know what I was expecting. Again, I have no idea what I was expecting. I don't think I thought about it
Okay.
that much. I think I'd seen like images here and there of like the transformation, so I kind of thought that was going to be just it. I don't think I thought it was going to
Gotcha.
go further. That he was going to go full wolf. Because I mean, I thought that was full wolf. I didn't know his full wolf was full wolf.
A
Yes, a
wolf.
wolf. Yeah. Yeah.
So What did you think of the ending of this movie? Like after he kind of like goes on like his like full on like 10 plus kill rampage.
This actually brings up something else I wanted to bring up because
Yeah, go for it.
there was a lot of, so this has, let me check again on like Flickster, Rotten Tomatoes, American Werewolf London, like audiences gave it like an 85% and critics gave it an 87, and I think that's pretty, I like that. I accept that. I definitely don't think
Yeah.
it was lower than that. I'm in debate if it should be higher, maybe like low 90s, but there was kind of mixed reviews when this first came out because there were some people saying like they did feel like they focused more on the makeup and the practical effects than they did on the story and the characters. And
Yeah.
I didn't think that much of the ending other than the scene where when he's telling Alex saying like, "Hey, I think cuz he says like I think I have to be killed by someone who loves me." And so I kind of thought she was going to be the one to kill him. There's there's an episode, I don't know any supernatural watchers out there. I don't watch it that much, but in
I'm still in like
so
season
yes, but
one.
anyway, season 2, there's an episode they're dealing with a werewolf, and they realize, sorry, spoiler, but they realize like, um, it's this the girl that they're meeting, protecting. They find out she's the werewolf, and they think, oh, killing the one that bit her is gonna make her, she'll stop changing, and that doesn't help, and so she basically says, you have to kill me, that's the only way to help me. And so I thought it was going to be kind of like that, like Alex was going to kill him, because he does say before he runs off, when he's freaking out realizing, oh my god, I killed all those people, I gotta, like, I'm a danger to everybody and you. And he says, I love you. And then she says, I love you to him right before he dies. So I thought she was going to be the one to kill him. So that's where I thought it was based
Well,
on.
I think that's that. I think that's kind of what happened is that she realized that he is a dangerous monster. So it's like when it gets to a point where he's like backed up in an alleyway, she goes up, tells him that I love you. He then lunges and attacks, and then all the police like full
Yeah.
on firing squad shoot at him and kill him. And I think that was her way of saying that I love you.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully, this is enough
Yeah. And
to that you can
yeah,
die.
yeah. But I think I just thought it was going to be like by her hand. Um,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I feel like the ending is definitely there's a lot to interpret there.
But yeah.
There's a lot of different ways that you can view the ending of like no she's like trying to like see the humanity in
Mm-hmm.
him to try and like snap him out of it, or uh she's trying to like it's like if I can't be with you, then I want to die with you or something like that, because she
Yeah.
pretty much like forces her way in front of the firing
Yeah.
squad to tell them
And
that. So it's like
yeah.
you are between a firing squad and a werewolf. There's no way you're getting out of this unscathed, even though she
I
does. Like
know.
nothing hits
Based on
her.
how far away she is from the firing squad, I was like, it's a it's like kind of impossible or a miracle that you didn't get
Yeah,
shot.
it's
But
like
yeah.
yeah, because like these guys are like firing like shotguns and like pistols, like from like I don't know, like 40, 50 yards away.
Yeah.
It's like it's these guys have like like spot on aim,
Yeah.
like way above like that of a beat cop in London should have, because like as far as I know, like they don't normally carry firearms. Like you have to like they just carry like billy clubs or nightsticks. Like they don't have like I could be completely
Yeah,
wrong,
yeah.
and I'm just stereotyping, but as I believe that at the time they didn't uh like like standard like beat officers would carry a firearm uh to for like for safety reasons. I don't know what, but yeah, it was just kind of surprising that she did not get hit when
Yeah.
by all accounts
Yeah.
she should have been hit.
But
Um
sorry,
so
but the reason
yeah.
I bring up the score, that it got was because one of the complaints was that they said it had a weak ending, which I'm in. I am not in, being that it's still pretty fresh in my mind, and I don't know if it's fully like absorbed what I watched. It take like I'm not like I literally takes me certain movies it's like right away, and certain movies it takes me like a 24-hour period for me to like absorb what I just saw. I don't know where I stand with this, but I kind of I don't really know if I thought it was a weak ending. I think it was just, well, as it went on, it was very evident that I didn't think in the very when I first started this movie, I did not think I didn't think either of them were going to die. I thought one was going to be a werewolf and the other was the friend that's just like helping him out, which is still in a sense what's happening, except that other friend is dead. And so as it goes
Yeah.
on, it's like, I mean, once he first says, "Oh, you got to kill yourself," it's like, "Oh, so he's going to die." Like there's no way out. That's the only way to end this. And I I do kind of think though that kind of going back to how I personally would have loved more information on the town and like the lore and why is there why is there a werewolf here? Like I
Yes.
it kind of makes me like when you were saying it kind of makes me think of what we talked about after we saw A Quiet Place. There was a lot of information we didn't have, and then it kind of all came to
Yeah.
it when we realized because we don't need it, it's not really relevant to. We want to know, but it's not relevant to the story. We don't really need it to watch the movie.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of
And
applies here.
I feel like you're right, and I think that it is kind of explained. It, like the lore is explained a little bit more in the sequel, because there is a sequel, or like roughly a sequel to this, called American Werewolf in Paris, which came out in
I thought it was
1997, I
like
believe.
barely related to it.
I, yeah, it doesn't have like any characters from the first one at all, and yeah, it came out in 1997. It doesn't have the same team, and it was heavily, heavily uses CGI, which has aged very poorly because this is 1997
Yeah,
CGI, so it is not that great.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it is just it is aged very poorly. And I've probably only seen like maybe 5 minutes of that, but from what I've heard, it does kind of explain a little bit more of the lore in that. Like apparently there's like a werewolf cult,
What?
and they have a drug that allows them to transform at will rather than during just a full moon. And I think they said that the guy who originally attacked uh, Jack and David in the first one was like a part of that or something,
That
um,
seems.
or
Yeah,
something like that. I could be
yeah, yeah. No, it
remembering
just.
that completely differently, but it just seemed like they were trying everything they can to just shoehorn the sequel into the original to kind of tie it together as much as possible because they had nothing else connecting the two movies. Because from what I understand, it more or less can just stand on its own as its own like generic werewolf
It's like they're
movie.
pulling a
Um,
metachlorians. Like, let's just give some random excuse to give.
yeah, yeah, kinda.
Yeah.
But I mean,
It's kind of like
yeah,
Black Christmas for me with the. I want to know all the backstory. I want to know all the history and the information, but I'm going to have to just suffer because it's not pertinent to the plot. So I don't, yeah, like, and you don't need it. You don't need it to watch this movie. It was more of just a curiosity. And I'm just kind of like, again, like I thought he was going to go back and maybe everyone was going to be like, like, go away. It's like, you guys are lying saying it was a guy that killed me. And nope, I'm pretty sure it was some kind of animal. So answers like, um, but yeah, do you think certain aspects of character development or any of that was not developed as well as it could have been?
I feel like the only like major like character development that I felt like was kind of rushed was the romance between Alex and David,
Yeah.
because like that, and they're suddenly shower shagging in the most abrupt transition I've ever seen. It just kind of jumps from like, okay, yeah, you can stay here till you kind of get back on your feet, to all right, I love you and we're living together now. It's like, okay, that was sudden.
Yeah, yeah.
You've been in a hospital for 3 weeks and have known her. You've known her for like
Well,
a
no, he's
month,
been
and you're
unconscious for
living
most
together
of
now.
that time, so he really only known her for
Yeah,
like a week.
exactly.
Yeah, I think it was definitely rushed, but I will say it didn't feel like I wasn't.
Played
No, it
out.
didn't. I mean, it didn't. It didn't feel. I. It was definitely rushed, but I didn't feel like it was horribly rushed. Like I said, I did feel they had chemistry. I did think there was some tension. I don't really. There's. I don't know. Again, this is my first viewing. I might change my mind. I feel like there's a lot of times where I feel like they're rushing something or they like skip steps to just get to. They need to be here, so we're gonna just skip a couple
It's
steps.
like this needs to happen so the
I didn't
movie can
really feel like
happen.
they necessarily skipped. I felt like, I mean, they might have. They probably did. It just didn't. I think I liked them enough that I was kind of like, all right, like, let's move on.
Willing to kind of put this on the back burners. Like this is the side story.
Yeah,
This is the B plot. I want to focus on the A plot of him being a werewolf and seeing his dead
yeah.
friend. Um, so I guess that kind of just wraps it up to the final question of, do you think this could happen, Sam?
Well, I mean, do I think this is? I don't think it could happen. I think there are a lot of.
Do you think werewolves are real though?
I think there's a lot of things about this that I find very realistic. I do think like I do think the conversation, the dialogue, the humor, and even like humor in places that you would not expect it, I thought were very realistic. I think the what I didn't buy was he was he gets told in the hospital, your parents have been told and Jack's parents have been told, and then Jack even says he went to his funeral, and I'm just like, I think he I guess okay, wasn't well enough to go to fly across, back home to the funeral. Okay. But why is
Yeah.
it the second he's out, his first thing was not to go home or to call his parents? There's literally, and I do kind of agree that there were a couple of unnecessary scenes of where they were just doing it to show off more practical effects and the makeup, like the dream sequence where he's at home and his whole family is attacked by like werewolf Nazis. I thought that was not necessary. If
Yeah, that was kind of
if anything,
random. I almost kind of forgot about that scene, honestly, until I kind of rewatched some scenes about this
if
movie,
yeah.
and it's like, I don't remember this at all. Oh yeah, this is random as
So if
hell.
anything, I don't. I think like if he had just like, okay, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go home, and maybe Jack appeared to him like, or he then has the nightmare, and then maybe Jack appears to him like, you can't go home. Like you're gonna. You're not gonna. It's not gonna solve anything. You're still gonna be a werewolf. You'll hurt. You'll kill your family. Like I kind of more just thought like he is still a college student. He's not just like a single adult. Like, yes, he's a single male, but like he's not just like a single adult. He
Yes,
has a life, he has a family, he has school, I guess, in like a few
he's a
months.
strong, independent man that don't need no
I just
family.
didn't really buy that he's just suddenly for however long gonna be just like, oh, he's just in London now. I didn't buy that. I
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm living with my now nurse girlfriend. She nursed me back to health.
I
I
think
love her.
I think the his reaction and the way he went about things, I thought was very, very believable. Um, I, I, I think it was just I don't buy for a second that he wouldn't make the effort to go home. That's probably my biggest thing that
Yeah,
I thought about.
I feel like, that's kind of like my main takeaway is that we never, like, as far as I remember, they don't really like doesn't talk to his parents or really mentions them
Yeah,
in great detail in this movie. Like the only time I think we ever see them is in that random dream sequence where they're getting killed when they're having dinner by the werewolf Nazis, which again, that's such a weird
and I
thing to
really
say.
want to know his
Um,
age too, because Alex has definitely got to be
college.
in her 20s, and I, based on his like, okay, they said we got 3 months, so I'm like, okay, is it supposed to be summer? And if it is supposed to be
I
summer,
guess.
I don't know. I just, based on his maturity level, I kind of would believe 21, 22, but I don't know. I was
Uh,
just more curious because of his, again, the fact that he's being very cavalier and like, oh, I'm here staying in London, not like, there were just, it just kind of made me question
yeah,
his age. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't really think that that
Again,
really matters. I
it
mean, it just kind
doesn't,
of like
but
it. Yeah, it was just like, all right, he's clearly like over 21 because they were able to like drink, or well, I
well,
don't
no,
think
it
that really
doesn't there.
applies since
Yeah.
they're in London. It's a different drinking age, but still, like they're like of college age, so they're like early to mid 20s. So like, okay, that's a decent
Yeah.
time frame, so we can kind of figure out what they are. But yeah, like the only like thing that I thought was kind of unbelievable was that like there wasn't like a scene or really like any major significant bits of dialogue where he's like, "Oh, I need to call my family, make sure, let them know that I'm okay, I'm alive, and I'm not a werewolf." Totally.
Yeah. And there's, yeah.
But everything else is I feel like pretty believable. It's like it would be natural that it's like, oh, like this is clearly not a ghost. I'm just seeing my best friend because I'm hallucinating because of the medications, or I feel bad because I initially left you for dead when you need me most, and went back on a whim even though you were already dead.
He
Um,
did also seem to get
and
over the
yeah,
fact that Jack was dead fairly quick. I understand he's in and out of it because he's in a hospital, but he finds out, he's like, "No, I got to see him. I want to see him." And then he, there didn't really seem to be a grieving period. He just kind of was shocked that first time, and then just in hospital still later. Um,
well, I think at that point it's just like, okay, I need to get over to this. Like, I think he was just trying to, like, if I can keep my mind off of Jack and like grieving for him, maybe he won't
but this
show
was
up
before, way before
as
that.
his like crazy
Before
goat.
that, I feel like.
Well, I
Yeah,
know, but
yeah.
still, like, but like even afterwards, like it would make sense. Like you can grieve afterwards. Like everyone kind of grieves in their own way and their own time and their own process. So I feel like that does still kind of make sense. It's like if I keep my mind occupied and like just do other things like Alex, but tis, it it'll keep my mind off of Jack enough so that he doesn't I guess
Yeah.
manifest like did in the hospital as a uh, ghoul that is a gory
Yeah, and
ghoul.
I would believe that, but I felt like, if anything, I was thinking, okay, he's telling the police that he was killed by like a animal, and they're not believing him. What's But I also find it funny because how, in like any vampire, if this was a vampire, it would be, no, you were killed by an animal. No, I was killed by a person. Like,
Yeah,
it's the opposite. So I thought that was funny.
yeah.
Um,
No, they pulled a
but I do
switcheroo
want to
on
say
him.
the scene where he is talking, he first wakes up and first finds out that Jack is dead. So someone from the US Embassy is there. It's Frank Oz. And at first when I saw
Yeah,
Frank Oz in this, I'm like, hey! And
I
he's
almost
kind
forgot
of an
about that.
a-hole. He's like, I know I know you're in shock, but there's no reason to get hysterical when he finds out Jack's dead. It's like, what? There's totally a reason to get hysterical. He was attacked by a werewolf and his friend's been was mutilated. What do you mean there's no reason? And then he like acted like, oh god, he's being so like immature and ridiculous right now. It's like, you have like what's up with you? What's wrong with you? He's being very normal.
Shut up,
Shut
Yoda.
up, Yoda. Go back to Dagobah.
um so yeah, I feel like that more or less kind of wraps up the 80s for horror-thon. I I really do enjoy this movie. This is definitely in like my like top 5 favorite werewolf movies.
Not favorite
Um,
movies, just favorite werewolf movies, like the category. Yes.
yes, yes, I have different
What's your
werewolf
favorite
movies.
werewolf
Like,
movie then?
I don't know. I feel like it's uh up there with Dog
What
Soldiers,
is
or
okay? I have a okay.
I. Well, hey, maybe we'll cover that in a
Yeah,
future episode.
dog
I don't
soldiers.
know.
Okay.
Yeah, Dog Soldiers. I do kind of have a soft spot for the underworld movies. And the classic Universal monster movie, The Wolfman.
Wolfman is definitely a movie I've been wanting to watch for a while, and I'd be definitely down to
Yeah,
watch.
yeah. That and Creature from the Black Lagoon are definitely like my favorite of like the Universal monster movies, because it's very much inhuman. Like you can't really reason with them. With like Dracula, you can kind of reason
Yeah,
with. Frankenstein, like Dr. Frankenstein, you can kind of reason with and kind of more or less outsmart or like maneuver around Frankenstein's monster. And same with the Mummy, because it's a very slow, wandering,
yeah,
meandering monster. But like the others, like, oh, like there's no way I can outrun this. There's no way I can reason with it. There's no way I can like face this thing like hand to hand. There's no way, and I think that just kind of makes it scarier than it
yeah,
already is.
yeah.
Um,
It's again, I don't have a favorite werewolf movie. I guess this is my favorite werewolf movie. I'm
yeah,
not. Yeah, yeah. I definitely would recommend.
not
No,
Twilight.
there's no werewolves in Twilight. They're in the second one.
Whatever, you know what I
no,
mean.
um,
Don't get me with that
well,
technicality
this is
bullshit.
also. I mean, this is. I feel like I've seen again each. This is the universal werewolf uh lore that I've seen of you to only turn on a full moon, and so it's going to be once a month, and you black out and kill people. I've seen that like a few times. I've seen others where it's just you turn
Yeah,
into a wolf, but you're like it's different. But yeah, this is fun.
yeah,
It's a fun movie. I definitely would recommend it to anyone.
yeah. It's a fun blend between horror and comedy, very much akin to Shaun of the Dead, which is another really fun movie that just like blurs the line between horror and comedy, and it's just a very hard. It takes a very hard stance on which genre it should more classify as, because it is a very funny movie, but then there are scenes that are like, this is genuinely horrifying to watch, of just like, okay, that man just literally just got his insides ripped out. What the hell?
Yeah.
um, so I think without further ado, boys and ghouls, that is all we have for this week's episode of Movie Reel. Join us next week where we talk about another frightful movie.
Yeah.
Really solid ending there,
I'm Samantha
Sam.
Tomlinson.
I'm Kevin Tracy. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Stitcher, and leave a comment on whatever
Yeah.
platform will allow you to leave a comment, and ask us for recommendations. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, and yeah, we read all the comments. So in the meantime, bye everyone.